business can be a lot more like Legos than a puzzle. And what I mean by that is with puzzle and Legos, like there's pieces that can be all over the table. But with a puzzle, you're just randomly picking up pieces and trying to put them together. And like, oh, you get lucky and you find two that go together. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. But with Legos, you get the Lego set, you dump all the pieces out, and then guess what it does? It says, find this piece, and then go find this piece, and you put it together.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Bradley Hamner is a seasoned entrepreneur who started his first business in 2009 with minimal resources, but a strong drive for success. After 5 years of intensive work, a health scare prompted him to rethink his approach. He shifted focus to leadership and restructured his business into a model that worked for him rather than the other way around. This transformation inspired the creation of Blueprint OS, a comprehensive operating system that helps business owners evolve from being operational rainmakers to strategic architects. As a business growth coach, certified value builder, and host of the Above the Business podcast, Bradley equips entrepreneurs with the systems, processes, and routines needed to grow scalable and sustainable businesses. His mission is to help business owners achieve the freedom and flexibility they initially aspired to have. So Bradley, welcome to the show.
Candy, it's great to be with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm glad to have you here. Before we get into questions on the topic, I would love for you just to share your story of how you began working with entrepreneurs to help them run their businesses more effectively.
I was in the corporate world, the corporate environment for a number of years, and my dad is a small business owner. That becomes a big part of my story. He's in the farming operation. He's a farmer. And so if you know anything about farmers, they have to work their tail off in planting season and harvest season. And so I really picked up the value and what it really means to work hard. I brought that in to my business. And really, ultimately, I wanted to leave the corporate world. I had an opportunity to kind of move to Chicago and make my way up the corporate ladder. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to carve my own path. I like to do what I want to do when I want to do it and have the money to be able to do so. And it was kind of really that entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, to not be told what to do that ultimately made me say, I think there's a better way to be able to do this. So I started my first business in 2010 and got it off the ground with my hard work ethic and my ability to sell. I had been in sales environment for a number of years, and that's exactly what I needed to get the business off the ground. But ultimately, that needed to change, and it didn't change. I simply just ran out of time. I was running myself ragged, and which is really kind of the story of so many entrepreneurs early on. You start to have a little bit of success, and it wasn't like what I was doing was not working. It was working really well, but ultimately I kind of burned out. I had a health scare, thought I was having some heart issues. It was panic attacks. I didn't know that that's what it was at the time, and I needed to make some changes, but honestly, I didn't know what that was. And I had a chance encounter in Toronto with an entrepreneur at a program, which I'm sure your listeners are familiar with, called Strategic Coach. And they were doing an exercise called 10X is easier than 2X, which is now portrayed in the book. But we were doing that exercise, and this entrepreneur was in kind of an adjacent industry as that I was in at the time. And he said, well, we did 40 million top line and I made 5 million personally. And I was like, wait, what? How much did you make? And he had shared with me that the same thing that I had heard for years. It's the same thing that is portrayed in the book, the E-Myth. You got to build systems and processes. And I thought, I'm so sick and tired of hearing that. But something changed because I had just had that scare. And also just something about like seeing his business at that level, it finally resonated with me. And so I tell people, yes, I got on that plane and I pulled up Word and I started to, type in. Of course, we didn't have AI at the time. I started to type in like, okay, what do we actually do? But more so, it was the identity shift inside of me that changed. Instead of seeing myself as like, I'm going to be the doer of all the things, I
Mm-hmm.
actually need to learn how to become the architect. And so we call that Rainmaker to architect. Many of your listeners maybe think of it as like operator to owner. Like I was the day-to-day
Mm-hmm.
operator of the business. I wasn't really sitting in the true owner seat. I wasn't really a true
Mm-hmm.
CEO, and I needed to learn how to do that. And that's what I did. And that's what ultimately we share with other small business owners to be able to do as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of times when people start their businesses, number one, they don't realize how much time it's really going to take. And they think, it's just going to be a few hours a day. I'm going to have my freedom, but it's usually the opposite, right? And you're working more than maybe you would
Yeah.
have in a traditional 9 to 5 job. And then you have to wear all the hats. And there are so many things that you have to do in business. But then the business owner feels, well, no one's going to care about the business as much as me, or I'm the one that knows all the things, so I have to be involved. So do you want to touch on that, on maybe like how they can even shift their mind around, like you said, thinking I am an owner, I don't have to be the operator, I need to be able to put some systems and processes in place so that I don't have to do all the things.
Yeah, there's a lot with that, and I'll kind of take it bit by bit. What makes oftentimes the entrepreneur so strong and have so many different skills is they're so good at doing the thing themselves. Nobody has
Mm-hmm.
ever taught them how to externalize out of their brain what it is that they're doing so well. Just this morning, I was meeting with two companies that are considering merging. They're home services companies. And one does painting and one does like exterior remodeling. And so they're thinking about merging together. They do both a couple million in revenue. They combine, they'll do maybe a little over 4. And they see that their combined efforts can really scale the company to 10 million and then on their way to 25 million. And well, one of the founders, he loves sales. I mean, when he talks about sales, he just lights up, right? And so when we were talking this morning about, eventually him getting out of sales, he's like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. And I'm not so sure even how to lead a sales team. So even in just this morning, you have this successful company, very profitable, doing really well. But he admitted, I'm tired. I'm just tired. I'm wore down. I'm successful. He was 30 minutes late to the merger meeting because he was running appointments this morning, right? And trying to set his crews to the jobs that have already been fulfilled. And so he's quite literally wearing all the hats. By the way, I'm looking at his phone. His phone's ringing the entire meeting with leads. And so in his mind, he's doing, and so he's, what happens is that they get the idea of like, I do want to scale. Like I do want to see what it's like to get to 1 million, 3 million, 10 million, whatever that number is. But oftentimes, and they've heard systems and process, but nobody's actually shown them like, this is actually how you do it. You think you're unique in the way that you sell. Quite frankly, you're really not. You can actually train someone else to do it the way that you do it. Now, are there people that there's only a select group of people in the world that are truly entrepreneurs that are able to have the collection of skills, but that's why you are the entrepreneur. You know enough about sales, you know enough about finance, you know enough about operations, etc. But it really ultimately depends on what your big vision is for your company. And that's one of the things that we had that conversation with him this morning about is, what do you really actually want? Because quite frankly, if you just want a couple $1 million company that throws off a few $100,000 in profit, that has a good lifestyle for you and your family, you can quite frankly just keep doing what you're doing. And guess what? That's not bad. That's not bad. But ultimately, he's like, no, that's not really what I want. Well, then you've got to have to lean into something that you don't actually know how to do. But there are people that success leaves clues. There is things out there that we can show you that you can do this because you're not unique in the fact that other people have experienced exactly what it is that you're experiencing. You don't know how to train a sales team. You don't know how to train. He just added his very first employee. So he's like, I didn't even know how to put somebody on payroll. Now he of course had contractors, but he didn't know how to run payroll for the first time, right? Who do you use for payroll? And how do I allocate the funds for that? And do I pay them health insurance? Do I pay a 401k? If I do, what percentage do I actually do that? And so when you get yourself around other people, that business can be a lot more like Legos than a puzzle. And what I mean by that is, with puzzle and Legos, like there's pieces that can be all over the table, but with a puzzle, you're just randomly picking up pieces and trying to put them together, and like, oh, you get lucky and you find two that go together, and you're like, okay, that makes sense. But with Legos, you get the Lego set, you dump all the pieces out, and then guess what it does? It says, find this piece, and then go find this piece, and you put it together. And then you go find this next piece and you start putting it together. And I do believe small business can be a lot closer to Legos than a puzzle. It doesn't mean it's easy, but I think it can operate a lot more like that if you get yourself around the right people.
Right. Well, there's a few things around that too. I mean, obviously they have to be able to get things out of their head and down, where they can show someone, and it's a written process or it's a video or, whatever they have to actually capture that. But finding the people that have the skills and, enjoy doing that too. So you actually are hiring in your company people that have those strengths and they love what they're doing as well. Right. And like the example that you were talking about, where this gentleman, he's already overwhelmed, he's already tired, and he's got, $1 to $2 million business, but they want to get to 10 or 25 million. He is not physically going to be able to even do that. So it's going to require him, no matter what, to actually have a team, right? And so I think sometimes it takes spelling out the actual facts. Like, let's look at this logically. How are you going to be able to do this, right? And so I think sometimes people don't realize that they're the bottleneck either, and having to get them to figure out, for you to get the freedom that you so desire, you're going to have to take steps to offload things off of your plate.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that there are three common problems, and then I think that there are three solutions to these common problems that business owners face. And so I'll share with you the common problems, and then I'll go over kind of one of the main ones, solutions, and then we can dive in however you see fit. One is, I think that business owners really lack clarity, and they think you have an idea of where they are today. But honestly, I've done this now for so long and helped so many businesses that's not surprising. But if I start asking some questions around their numbers, they don't know their numbers. They just don't. I mean, I asked this guy this morning, it's like, how many sales did you do? How many deals did you do last year? He's like, I don't really know. I was like, did you do 1,000? He's like, no, like closer to 150. I'm like, okay, great, 150. I was like, what was your profit margin on those? He's like, I don't really know. I was like, when's the last time you got your monthly financials? He's like, I don't know, 2023, So just all these kind of things, it doesn't surprise me anymore, but you got to have clarity of where you are today. You got to have a clarity of really where you want to take the company, and then you got to have a plan to make that happen. So I think the biggest first problem that business owners have is they lack clarity. I mean, their vision of where they want to go is fuzzy at best. It's certainly not written down. It's not documented, and they really don't have a good handle on where they are today. I think the second problem is they lack systems. I mean, again, I was that way. I heard that you need to have systems and processes, but truthfully, I was at best taking information from my brain and giving it and trying to train it to one person, but it was never actually being documented so that we can improve upon it as we went, right? There was nothing documented at all. And so I think the solution to that is you've really got to have an operating system. I think you do. And that's why we call it Blueprint OS. I think the third is what I said earlier. They're tired. They're just tired. And so I think the solution to that one is you've got to lead yourself first. And so if you lack clarity, you need a roadmap. And a roadmap is, where are you today? Where are you going? What's your plan to make that happen? I think if you lack systems, you need an operating system to run the business so it's not running off of you. And I think if you're tired, I think you need to lead yourself first. And so I call that the operator to owner model. So you need a roadmap, you need an operating system, and we've got to make sure that we optimize and take care of the entrepreneur him or herself, because if we don't do that, nothing else really matters.
When you talked about the clarity and people not knowing their numbers, I agree, because we do bookkeeping and payroll. That's the main business that we offer. And so many times we have offered to clients, let's sit down, have a meeting, go over your financial information. And many times there's no, I just need this, for my CPA. You just do it every month. You send me the information, and I think it comes down to, like you said, they're tired. They're doing so many things that's just seen as one of the things, like, well, it's being handled. I don't really have to look at the information. And like you're saying, it doesn't, by doing that, they don't know where they really are. They might know how much money's in the bank, but how profitable are you, or all those things too. So I agree with you, on that. But you talked about leading yourself first. I would love for you to just say, like, in practice, what does that really look like for someone to lead themselves first?
Yeah. All right. So I'll give you we'll take a concept and we'll break it down into practical things. I think number one is you got to have what we call a PRW, or a perfect repeatable week. What does a perfect week look like for you? Some people refer to that as an ideal week, but you build your PRW based on your energy rhythms, not based on time. And what I mean by that is the most important thing you can do for your team is to give them your energy, which means that one of the most selfless things you can do is to show up as your best self. So that if I'm not this way. At Monday at 8:30 in the morning is when I used to run team meetings, because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. Now, what book did I read that in? I have no idea. I hate Mondays at 8:30 in the morning. I'm awful. I want to go to the gym. I want to drink coffee. I want to get the kids to school. I want to do all those kind of things. By 11 a.m., I'm into the week, okay, at that point. And so I said, finally, why don't I just change it to whenever I can show up for my very best self? And same thing, like, let's take the painting example, just since we're talking about that one earlier. He doesn't have a schedule for when he's meeting with clients. He's meeting with clients at whatever time he can meet with clients, which includes it Sunday morning at 9:00. I'm like, do you want to meet with a potential prospect at Sunday morning at 9:00? He said, no. He drove 45 minutes for a potential $500 deal. It's like, that doesn't make funny. It doesn't make sense to be doing that. And also, I think he could show up as his best self if he's got slots in that he's already predetermined. Now, is it going to be perfect? No, it's not going to be perfect, but at least we start to get an idea of what a perfect week looks like. And then we try as much as we can to optimize our week to be able to do that. I think that's number one. I think the second thing is part of your week, you need to spend time thinking about the business. Like, get out, go to a coffee shop with you and a pen and a cup of coffee, and actually get away, get above the business, and actually spend some time thinking about the business. Like, where are we going? What is my plan? How am I going to actually begin to kind of scale this team? And that takes intentionality. If you're running from appointment to appointment to appointment, running around like a chicken with your head cut off, you're not going to be able to think clearly to make some of these big decisions of merging companies, growing your company, hiring people, optimizing your marketing, building your sales team, whatever it may be. You got to spend at least 60 to 90 minutes once a week. That's all it takes to just spend time thinking about the business. Those two things alone, I'll give a third, I guess, since I like things in thirds, but I think that's one. And then also spending 1 hour, typically most business owners, Sunday nights, the best time to do this is planning your week. Like, we call it Sunday night planning. You can do it Monday morning. Some people have tried doing it Friday afternoons. We've typically found we encourage our business owners to take Saturdays off. We call it Free Day Saturday. Maybe you go to church on Sunday morning, spend time with your family. Well, by Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, most business owners, they're starting to kind of get into the week, right? They're starting to think about the week, and that planning, what do I really want to get done this week, can become just so invaluable for the business, because you're thinking about planning for the week. What are the big things I need to get done? That structuring your week based on your ideal energy rhythms and having 1 hour once a week where you're spending time thinking about the business. That's all. That alone can absolutely add so much to the small business owners that are out there.
But even someone listening right now might say, okay, I get that's what I should be doing. But once again, I'm already working 12-hour days, 15-hour days, whatever, 7 days a week. I don't have a lot of downtime, and adding in that extra hour or 90 minutes or whatever, that's just, to me, it just seems like one more thing and I'm overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
What can you say to them to figure out how they can actually get that time in there without adding more time into their schedule, so that they can really have that strategic planning?
I think everything is downhill from the vision that you have for the company. So one of the biggest things that we spend time on is getting the business owner to externalize what is the compelling vision that they have for their business. We call that your business blueprint, and that is your 3-year vision, your 1-year objectives, and your 90-day priorities. But for just this conversation, I'm going to spend time on the 3-year vision. You're right. This, and along with about 75 other good ideas we have, whether it's tools and templates and playbooks, et cetera, that we give our business owners, at the end of the day, everything is downhill from the vision that you have. So it has to change from a something that they need to do to something that they want to do. It goes literally right back to what I was saying earlier about this company. What do you really want? Just be honest about it. Just be honest. What do you actually really want? And if that vision is big enough and compelling enough, then you will stop making excuses to yourself and will start to make the changes. You will start to see that this is unsustainable. So as I was telling this gentleman earlier, do you think you can do 2.5 times more than what you're doing now? He said, there's no way. I mean, I can barely keep up with what I have now. Well, then you're at a crossroads. Either you're going to sabotage and keep the company as exactly where it is right now, which was fine if you design it that way, or you're going to have to convince yourself that these are some of the changes that I need to be able to make. And that's what it comes down to. For me, it took me getting to a place to where I said, I'm 34, I'm having panic attacks. This is ridiculous. I run a $600,000 company and I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. What is this all for? I need to make a change. And so it took the pain threshold of staying the same to be greater than the pain of me making a change. That's simply what it comes down to. And so if the vision is big enough, they'll find the time. They'll start making decisions in a way that says, okay, I think I'm actually going to start making some changes. Or just don't say that you have the vision to want to grow and scale your company, which is, by the way, totally fine. Totally fine. Got one business owner. He's got 2 companies. One company, he has a co-founder that really kind of runs the day-to-day. The other business, he takes like 200 days off a year. And so I told him, it's going to be hard for you to really grow this company 20% year over year when you're not there. What are you going to optimize for? And he's like, I want to optimize for more time off. I said, great. Then we just need to make sure that your revenue and profit projections in the next 3 years reflect that. And he did. And he said, it was something about me being honest about, like, you know what? I'm kind of good with where this company is. It's throwing off profit. I get to take time off. I'm good with that. And another one, I'll even get specific, like, since you do what you do, like we just came out of talking about the marketing playbook with our business owners. And so we were going over some marketing metrics. And so we, kind of advocate, typically you're going to see a company do, somewhere invest between 5 and 10% of their top line revenue in marketing. That's very broad, depending on the industry, but close enough. And so I had a business owner that has some really lofty growth goals this year. He needs to grow. I think the number ended up being about 22%. And so when we looked at his marketing investment, he was less than 2% that he was investing in marketing. And I said, you have a choice. Either you're going to make the investments in marketing that you need to in order to get the leads for the sales team to actually hit these numbers, or you're going to have to change those numbers. And so I'm giving all of these examples to get somebody to actually just be honest with what do you actually really want? And then everything else comes in alignment with that, including deciding I am going to plan my week. I am going to spend an hour a week getting my butt out of the office and go sit at a coffee shop and actually think about the business instead of it just being a good idea.
Well, someone who's listening might think, well, what will my staff think if I'm not working as much? If they don't see me, from early in the morning until later in the evening, working hard, they're going to think, well, why does she get to take off, or why does he get to take off and we're here running the company? So do you want to touch on kind of that perception that someone might have?
Well, yes. So it's a great question. So I'll answer that from two angles. One is that can be handled in recruiting. Oftentimes, the business owner, I actually literally have a CEO job description that is like, this is what Bradley needs to spend time doing. And so when we're recruiting people into the company, they know in the recruiting process what my role is and what my role is not. So we are uber clear from the get-go. This is what I do. I don't do these things. And so that in and of itself, but oftentimes business owners haven't actually thought like, what are the things that are the 150, the 250, the $500 an hour task that actually grow the business versus the 20, the 25, the $15 an hour task that need to get done. They must get done, but are not the things that actually need to be done in the business. And that process of actually knowing like, what are the things that actually grow the business and the things you love to do is probably one of the easiest things to do. And once you get clear on that, and then you communicate that to your team. So across my companies, my employees know this is what Bradley's role is in this company. And it's just super clear because we've communicated it. And I've actually went to a coffee shop and thought, what is my highest leverage that I should do? As an example, being on your podcast, I'm the one that needs to do that. And if I said, hey, Candy, I'm not going to jump on this podcast, but my EA is going to do that. It's like, listen, I love Courtney. She worked for me for a long time, but that's not Courtney's role. But it was Courtney's role to get me on your podcast for the first time. And so I think it's just being really clear about what are the high value, high leverage tasks that the CEO should and should not be doing.
Perfect. Well, is there anything else on this topic that you want to share before we come to the end of the episode?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, I talked more about the 3-year vision, but if there's really one thing, one practical thing for business owners to be able to do is to be able to really create a blueprint for your company. Where are you trying to go over the next 3 years? What do you need to try to do this year in 2025 or 2026, whenever you're listening to this? And then what are we trying to get done this quarter? Because really everything is downhill from the vision that you have. Every person you hire, who you fire, your marketing, your sales, merger, your business model, what offerings you have. Ultimately, everything is downhill from that. I was working with another client after that merger this morning, and they are basically a VA, a national, or really a global VA company, and they're doing about 3 million, and they have got the vision of about 2027 to scale to 8. And, we've worked through not just the math, but like, why is that important to this particular business owner? Because it's not just the numbers. I mean, it is that, but like, what would that mean for him? What would that mean for his family? What would that mean for his leadership team? What would that mean for the company? What kind of impact would he be able to make? And so while the numbers help us to start framing customer growth and fulfillment on the backside, what's way more important is he is so committed to that vision. And so all the decisions that we're making are navigated by that North Star that he has. And when we first started working together a few months ago, it was fuzzy. It was vague. It was just, I don't know. I just don't like where I'm at. we're doing a few million in revenue. We're not making money. I want to grow and I want to make more money. Right. And I want to
Mhm.
work less. I mean, it was what it come down to. And I was like, okay, well, we need to actually start adding some structure to that. So we started to
Mhm.
really articulate what his business blueprint needs to be. We started to get a really good handle on where the company is today. And now he's operating with a really good plan to make that happen. So I think that that's one of the biggest things I want people to be able to take away, and that you can do that by just spending a couple hours away from the business.
Mhm. Perfect. So we are coming to the end of the time we have together. So I wanted to ask if you have an offer that you would like to extend to our listeners, and also if anyone wants to reach out to you and connect, how can they contact you?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. If they go to my website, blueprintos.com, they can register for one of my live web classes. So in that workshop, what we do for a little over 60 minutes or so, I go into detail into every one of the things that we've talked about and a lot more. We go over our operator to owner model, and they can get access to our operator to owner toolkit whenever they attend live for that. So they can go to my website, blueprintos.com, and register for my next upcoming live web class. And if they want to connect with me personally, I'm not super active on social media. My team is on me all the time about doing that, but LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me personally.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you, Bradley, for being a guest on my show and talking on this topic. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Candy, for the opportunity.
And to you, the listener, if you enjoyed today's topic and you want to hear additional information, you can find access to exclusive content in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.